Welcome back to Leighton's Expert Exchange podcast. If you are just joining us, this is part 2 of our conversation with Darragh Gaffney, Director of Growth and Sustainability at IRDG. In part 1 of our episode, How Ireland Has Become a Hub for Innovation, Darragh and Leighton's own Head of Partnerships, Sarah Anderson, covered insights on Ireland's innovation landscape and the integral role that IRDG play in supporting and advancing research and development in the country. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I highly recommend going back to catch up. But if you're ready, let's dive back in and pick up right where we left off.
Fab. So if we were to have a look or analyse the kind of key policies or frameworks that are in place at the moment in time to support Ireland, what would be your outlook on what's that has the most impact?
Sure. I think it's no harm to say, first and foremost, is that all the policies and frameworks that come from a government level are very pro-business.
Yep.
And they are always looked at through a lens of business first while still being compliant to everything that they need to be. So we've already spoken about how the fact of R&D Tax Credits, obviously, and KDB is a key policy and mechanism that can be used to drive it. However, there's also other aspects on the fringes. You know, even just the fact that you have an Enterprise Ireland that exists in the state that is purely dedicated towards Indigenous Irish firms. And then the fact that you have its sister company, IDA Ireland, which focuses fully on foreign direct investment. You know, but there are a number of agencies and mechanisms under that that, in fairness, the government have implemented because of advocacy from business in Ireland. I think a key one of those would have been, a number of years ago, would have been a national IP protocol or a national IP framework. You know, I remember back when I was an R&D director myself, if you wanted to collaborate with an academic institution, the collaboration agreement, and in particular the IP terms within that collaboration agreement, was different with every institution that you spoke to.
A lot more hoops to jump through.
Yeah, absolutely. And so actually the establishment then of Knowledge Transfer Ireland underneath Enterprise Ireland, or as a spoke of Enterprise Ireland, was actually a huge step forward, just as much as the likes of Science Foundation Ireland. And then you've also got other agencies like the Irish Research Council and the like as well. I think outside of that as well is Ireland is still relationship driven. Okay, it is still a small country, and funny enough, I was talking to, a few months back, I was talking to the outgoing TD, Dennis Norton, and he was saying that, look, 20 years ago he arrived into his constituency office and there was a pile of 200 letters, you know, sitting on his desk waiting for him, you know, on a weekly basis. He said the letters has now been replaced by emails, and he said 10x. You know, the amount, and he said it is impossible to get through and to digest and hear everything. So actually, phone up your TD is what he said. Phone up your local representatives, phone up your TDs. If you are a business and you're having challenge, the fantastic thing about the Irish system is it is flat. And it is accessible. And government actually listens once it's evidence-based. So if you can make a case for it, government have demonstrated that they will listen. And we've seen that. You know, I mean, it's fantastic to see sometimes when you make a pre-budget submission, as I'm sure you well know, you feel like you may be banging your head against a brick wall. But then after 2 years, when you see recommendations
changing.
Absolutely. Now, you've no idea if that's on the behest of your submission. But it
could be.
That's exactly it.
And it's the opportunity that the impact can be made.
That's exactly it. So I think the combination of structured policies and frameworks, but actually a system that will listen once you can provide evidence behind it, means that actually Ireland is very well set up for innovation.
Love it. What are some of the biggest challenges that are impacting companies' ability to innovate in Ireland at the moment in time, and how can these companies go about countering the challenges?
Yeah, what a loaded question.
Yes. Go for it in 2 parts.
A nice easy one. What I'd always say is I think there's 3 parts to answer this. Okay, so the first thing is any company needs to first and foremost, I think, understand or decide what do they need to actually deliver on an RD&I project that they want to work towards. Okay, and generally that comes down to one of 3 things, or maybe a mix of 3 things. But generally, it's cash, so that you can do it in-house.
Definitely.
It's upskilling staff or access to skills that are outside of your business.
Yep.
Or actually, it's collaborating with an external partner. And in reality, it's that simple. So it's cash, skills, external collaboration. So that's the first thing. Can I do it internally, or do I need to go outside of my own 4 walls? So that's the first thing. And then it is then about deciding, well, what funding mechanism will actually suit
to get you there.
Delivery of that. And ultimately then I would always put this through a commercial lens and say, well, what is the commercial priority of this project? We would often talk about scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 projects, or horizon 1, horizon 2, horizon 3 projects. But generally something within 12 months, 12 to 36 months, anything out 5-7 year horizon.
Plus,
yeah, exactly. And actually there's a yin-yang risk there as well. Generally, a near-term project is highly commercial. You can see where the customer is. Risk is low. Okay, and the grant funding options are prorated against that. Generally, you may get around 25% to be able to deliver a project like that, because you're quite close to market. The Horizon 2 projects, the risk starts to rise, and do you know what? So does the percentage grant funding that you can get as a result. And Horizon 3 projects, I would often say, not exclusively, but this is where you maybe start looking like something like a Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund, or maybe dipping into Horizon Europe funding as a result. It's a challenge that is bigger than you, and that you might need 3, 4, 7 collaboration partners to actually deliver.
And a huge amount of funding.
And a huge amount of funding. And in fact, and I know this myself, is that even as a company that was designated as a large entity, we were able to leverage 70% funding. But this was for a project that was high risk and 5 to 7 years out. So you can see that relationship that exists. And then the third part then is I'd always say, where does a project sit on the technology readiness level scale? So for anyone that doesn't know what the technology readiness level scale, or the TRL scale is, it was actually developed by NASA during the moon launch program. And basically TRL 1 is, let's stick with the space analogies.
Go for it.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Love it.
And maybe there's people that may watch this who don't know who Scotty is at this stage, but it's that kind of stuff. It's bending the laws of physics. TRL 4 then is you're starting to get to first prototype. Minimum viable product, minimum viable service, first prototype. TRL 7 then is you've worked through a lot of that, and actually next step is engaging your customers. So anything north of TRL 7 is generally seen as a commercialization style activity. And so once you can actually choose where your project sits on that TRL scale, very quickly then you can decide then, the funding mechanism, the pathways, the skills, access to
what's there for you.
Absolutely. And I think it's no harm to note as well that generally academia is around that TRL 1 to 4 space. Industry by and large sits within TRL 4 to 7. But in reality probably sits in that 6 to 7 range,
top end.
That more applied area. And a lot of industry does that TRL 8, 9, 10. But in terms of R&D tax credits, it's out. Because it's a commercialization, it's a commercial activity.
I always explain it, if you look at a production line, everything up to the shutters that open the door and let the van out is where you're at, and your TRL, 8, 9, 10 is heading out the door, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, and I think quite often when you walk companies through that process in a much more structured manner, they actually take a breath and go, oh, it's actually not as complicated as I thought it was. you know, and it gives them a huge amount of reassurance about how to move forward then as a result.
When you're looking at the R&D tax credit, or you're looking at the grant funding opportunities, what advice would you give for somebody, you know, an SME who wants to take that step, you know, who has concept, idea, design, prototype, whatever it might be? They've been working on the project, they know that it's going to continue. Let's just say, you know, there may be TRL 3, 4, somewhere in that region. What would your advice be in terms of how they move forward with that?
I'd always say to them to engage external experts.
Okay.
Like, and quite often it's starting to change.
Yeah.
But in particular within the SME base in Ireland, there was a reticence to access external consultants in particular.
Yeah.
You know, consultant is nearly like a dirty word.
Yes.
You know, like, but when you start to talk to them and go, well, you wouldn't do your accounts yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you use an external accountancy firm, you know, to do your annual accounts. You know, why would you not use an external expert firm, one, to either help you engage tax credits, or actually to leverage every last cent out of your R&D tax credit claim as you can. Yes, you're going to pay them.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to pay them. But do you know what? If you can secure an extra 10, 20% of a claim back,
definitely.
Or quite often, actually, I've spoken to a number of companies and they've said, oh, Darragh, thank God you connected us with such and such.
Yeah.
We didn't realise half of our expenditure was eligible under revenues guidelines until we engaged with an external R&D tax credit expert. So, you know, first off, once you get over the psychological hump of cash out the door, the reward is always there on the back end. The second part of it then is what I'd always say is it's the comfort blanket it gives you. You know, yes, it makes the process of actually compiling and submitting the claim, one, easier, and two, more impactful to the bottom line. But three, it gives you that comfort blanket if revenue come back and go, one, we've either a query, and they used to be called aspect queries, now they're just called queries, or actually they come and go, we're coming for an audit.
Yes.
And you know, rather than having to reverse scramble over 12, 18 months, and I think there's a 5-year, revenue can go back 5 years on your R&D tax credit claims, you have that buffer of an expert company to actually be able to use. So why would you not pay for that service?
It is imperative that, you know, the compliance aspect, we talk about, you know, people being risk averse and not inviting revenue in. You know, as you say, why not add that extra buffer layer, for want of a better expression, and to, you know, just mitigate as much risk as you can. And I think that's the reason that we will work with the likes of accountants, etc., to try and, you know, help their client base and support clients through that journey. And it's definitely the kind of biggest selling point. I know that the query rate, I think at the moment in time, is around about 25%, which is 1 in 4. And, you know, that number's massive. Why not have somebody there that can, you know, answer the questions in the format, because it isn't always as scary as it seems. We talk about, you know, the audit's different, but the queries themselves, automatically people, you know, start to get the fear of death in them. But actually, 9 times out of 10, they're pretty, you know, standard questions that just need more in depth, that, you know, having a third party there to support you with maybe takes away a little bit of fear.
Exactly. And I think I think you've actually raised a really interesting point as well, because quite often, and look, this is no sales exercise, I'm not...
No, you and me both, don't worry.
I'm not here to push Leighton over anybody else, but I think the model of engaging with local accountancy firms is actually quite an innovative and interesting one in itself. Because one of the things I often hear from managing directors and go, yeah, actually, after I spoke to our accountant, you know, and actually they said, 1, we don't have experience in that area, and 2, it feels risky, stay away from it.
Yeah.
You know, so they can sometimes be put off by their main regional focused accountant. Yeah. That's absolutely fine. So actually, I think that partnership model to actually offer that expertise through the accountancy channel is a nice way then to actually plug that gap.
And again, it gives the accountant a little bit more of, you know, a comfort that they have somebody, as you say, they don't specialise in it. In particular in Ireland, it's not something that, is standard accounting practice, nor is it something that they seem to be interested in doing at standard accounting practice. So, bring somebody else in to support and advise on that. I promise it wasn't paid for that. But thanks. What are the emerging technologies and sectors that have high potential for innovation within Ireland? And then what strategic direction should Ireland take to maintain and enhance the innovation leadership relationships?
Yeah, I'll take the first one first.
Lots of words.
It's going to be no surprise to anybody that, digitalisation, AI and sustainability are the three core challenges on absolutely everybody's lips.
I like buzzwords now.
Yeah, they absolutely are. The AI aspect is starting to calm down a small bit, and I think people are still looking for that killer use case. And again, I'm not here to sell anything on my own behalf, but actually two use cases we're seeing actually for the application of AI for businesses is one in sales and marketing functions, but actually the other one is the acceleration of innovation and new product development and new service development. And again, actually, look, we have stuff around that. I won't name check it here. I'm not here to sell any of that, but actually they are two really tangible use cases that we're starting to see AI making serious bottom line traction in at the moment. Sustainability is the other one. And I think what's starting to happen actually is that sustainability has effectively leapfrogged innovation in businesses at every aspect in the business, within the business, at the C-suite and at the boardroom. And now sustainability is actually driving the innovation agenda.
And this is a huge part, isn't it? And actually it's interesting because, sustainability drives innovation, but the innovation can accelerate the sustainability.
Yeah, and that is exactly it. And ironically as well, then digitalization and the potential use of AI tools can also actually accelerate your sustainability journey, as well. Provided the carbon footprint of any digitalisation and AI tools you use and doesn't outweigh the savings that it's actually...
Carbon accounting.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because the carbon footprint is often a third-party data centre rather than on your premises doesn't mean you're not accountable for it. But again, that's a separate podcast altogether.
That's a whole different...
altogether. So, look, that's not sectoral challenges. Digitalisation, sustainability hits every sector within Ireland. And in fairness, that is well aligned with the EU's priorities as well. And the Department of Enterprise has an ambition or their goal or their mantra at the moment even is that no SME should be left behind in the era of digitalisation. And as a result, there is brand new digital innovation hubs funded through Europe, administered by Enterprise Ireland. There's 4 of them now in Ireland where companies can use them to actually access digital maturity services, benchmark where they are and actually see what is the right digitalisation pathway for those companies to actually go on. Because it's really difficult for non-digital, non-tech people to understand where to put their money.
Definitely. So. It's another minefield, isn't it, that it ultimately needs navigated. And having that facility just, allows them the opportunity to kind of have somebody advise on it. Absolutely.
If I do pick on a sector, actually, that I would say maybe has potentially been underrepresented in the area of innovation, although it's not that they're not innovative, and is starting to get significant government support, it is the construction sector. And in particular in the area of modern methods of construction. So again, about 3 days ago, I saw SkillNet Ireland have launched a brand new modern methods of construction SkillNet. So again, a dedicated mechanism to teach and to upskill the construction industry in areas of modular building, in effect. So if we talk about modern methods of construction, everybody thinks about modular building, absolutely, but do you know what? There's also 3D concrete printing, that exists out there. There's different methods that are out there. There's the implementation of digital technologies. We don't just talk about insulation anymore.
No.
We talk about actually energy management.
Yep.
So it's helping all those construction companies, which were traditional bricks and mortar, hands-on, sectors, to actually, revolutionize and evolve and revolutionize how they deliver within their business.
And we've talked about that one before. Obviously, construction historically, in particular with R&D tax credit, has always been massively underutilised and, pretty much seen as a no-go area. It's an area that we specialise in, that we've worked in now for a number of years in Ireland, and with, some really big firms in Ireland, particular construction, manufacturing, engineering, consultant engineer, architects. There is a huge opportunity out there, and it's not to say that everybody will, qualify, but as you say, everybody's taking steps in the right direction to look at new methods of whichever area of the kind of wider construction industry you can qualify. It's how can you, like all of the other companies that are out there, how can you benefit to accessing funding opportunities to accelerate the next steps, whether that be to, a more sustainable world, looking at more cost effective, whatever it may be. But there's a massive opportunity in an area that probably is pretty much untouched within Ireland at the moment.
Absolutely.
What strategic direction should Ireland take to maintain and enhance innovation leadership? Yeah,
so there's a number of prongs to that. First off, if the world hasn't caught up, it's catching up rapidly in terms of what Ireland has done over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, in particular around the R&D tax credit scheme and mechanisms. Ireland was held up as an exemplar for many years. However, a number of countries are basically just doing a copy and paste.
Yeah.
I think of Malta, I think of France, and these aren't like Asian companies or US countries or anything like that. These are countries on our doorstep, and they are moving rapidly. So the first thing we'd say is that I think the process and the administrative load to make R&D tax credit claims, I think, needs to be simplified and needs to be a lot less burdensome, in particular for SMEs. Yeah. So, look, there's a number of aspects in that. So we would say policy excellent, operational delivery needs work.
Yeah.
Okay. So quite often claims can maybe be delayed.
Yes.
Understanding where your claim is in a processing pipeline, when it may be paid. Companies, in particular SMEs, need to know where their cash flow is coming from.
It's imperative. It's money they depend on, isn't it?
Absolutely. So if they don't have visibility of when an R&D tax credit claim is going to be paid out, they need to sort out cash flow management significantly. The second part we'd ask for then is now, we would love a central case unit within revenue that deals just with R&D tax credit claims. Will it ever happen? I doubt it. Okay. However, that is the model we would prefer.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we would love to see divisional and large case units just being more active and actually being more communicative within the process and actually, letting companies understand where that is. A number of aspects could be like raise that the €50,000 cash up front to 150k, be fantastic for SMEs. And simplify that application process, reduce it from 3 years down to 2 years. Look, there's all sorts of minutiae within there which we don't have to get into here, but basically simplify the process, and go after that from a revenue commissioner's point of view. The second part we'd see then actually is we'd love to see a sustainability and a green tax credit introduced. And something around the lines of a 50% credit for green innovation and green R&D. Other countries are doing it, and we're going to be overtaken very quickly if we do not move in this space rapidly. It is an area that, from a sustainability point of view, yes, there are grants and supports that exist, But from a tax credit and a tax policy point of view, it's an area we have not
yet.
We have not prioritised.
Yeah.
So I think that's an area that needs to be prioritised. The third aspect I'd say is potentially the most important, and because it's probably a longer horizon investment that we would see needs to be made. We've spoken about the triple helix innovation model, and academia is a key pillar of that. However, government investment in academic R&D, or just government investment in R&D, full stop, still sits at 2010 levels.
Yeah.
So that means there is effectively just under a 1.1 billion euro gap in government funding into R&D, into government funded R&D.
Yeah.
And if academic research are the gatekeepers of that new knowledge creation, that foundational R&D on which companies will then innovate and commercialise, well then we really need to prioritise that investment.
Definitely.
Now we're not saying that we should, in the budget, in October 24, that should go from a 1 billion investment to a 2.1 billion investment.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, absolutely. But the government have stated in the Department of Further and Higher Education's Impact 2030 policy to double industry R&D spend by 2030, but they need to match that in line. So we'd love to see an extra 250 million euros over the next 4 years invested into government R&D.
Brilliant.
So I think that's the key priorities. There is other stuff we're seeing now. A lot of what would have been traditional manufacturing focused multinationals in Ireland are prioritising the creation of centres of excellence, R&D centre of excellence within Ireland. They recognise that there is maybe only a 10 or 15 year lifespan left in their manufacturing entities within Ireland. You know yourself, Medtronic do not see Boston Scientific as a competitor.
Yes.
The Medtronic site in Galway sees the Medtronic site in Brazil as their main competitor. So if they can add extra strings to their bow, high value, high impact jobs, such as an R&D centre of excellence, well then that makes the site in Ireland a whole lot stickier.
It puts it one level above, doesn't
absolutely.
it?
R&D tax credits is obviously a key lever, but also, do you know what, IDA Ireland as well have partnered with the Institute of Management, the Irish Management Institute, to develop a course called Leading with Strategic Intent, and that's for site leadership teams within FDI companies actually to shift from that purely manufacturing mindset to that strategic innovation mindset.
What's next?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we're obviously delighted to see that.
Thank you. That has been so insightful. Is there anything else that you want to chat through? You think is imperative in terms of focusing Innovation Hub in Ireland?
No, I don't think so. I think we've had a very wide-ranging conversation, and thank you very much for that. I think all I'd wrap up by saying is that Irish innovation exists all around us, whether we realise it or not. And so I visit, in particular, Irish SMEs on a weekly basis, and I'm continually blown away by the level of innovation that exists. Yeah. Down country lanes and boreens, in the back of beyond in Ireland, not to mention what's going on in the towns and cities. Yeah. Everybody probably knows of the likes of, a Kingspan or maybe, Kerry, global leaders in their area.
The big brands.
Absolutely, known as being truly innovative. But, they may not know about the likes of Railtra Technologies. Yeah. They had their cameras on new satellites that got launched into space there a month ago.
Amazing.
The new Ariane 6 satellite that got launched. The Applied Process company down in Cherrywood, a spin out from UCD, 10 years ago, and now has built a 100 million euro campus in Cherrywood, deals with 13 of the 15 top pharmaceutical companies in the world, and is going to put another 100 million into the site there. So, I just encourage everybody to, pause, take a look
Yeah.
and see where that innovation exists all around you in your daily lives.
I love it. Good. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you. Huge amount of insight to work off of there. Thank you so much for listening and for joining us today. Hopefully you found that as insightful as I did. We will be back at the end of next month for episode 3. Thank you again to Darragh for joining us, and thank you for listening.